Welcome to the Cyclical Doula Podcast. I'm Emma, a certified Sympto-Pro instructor, a fertility awareness educator, and your guide to fertility coaching and reproductive health education from menarche to menopause and all the different types of motherhood in between. If you're seeking a natural, science-backed approach to managing your fertility, understanding your cycle, or simply connecting with your body in a new way, you're in the right place. Each episode is designed to empower you with the tools, knowledge, and confidence you need to thrive in your unique journey. Quick disclaimer, this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not medical advice or individualized charting support. For specific guidance, please consult with your healthcare provider or fertility awareness instructor. Now, let's dive into today's topic.
Welcome to the space where cycles breathe, where the real raw life of Emmamma leads, from motherhood's highs to charting the low. Your body's story is the star of the show. Matriarch heart.
You know those weeks when your brain is making 1,000 decisions a minute, cravings feel louder than your plans, and you're wondering, is this just my luteal phase or something more? Today, we're getting honest about food, recovery, and women's health with Stephanie Mattrey, licensed acupuncturist, women's health specialist, and creator of the Pulse Project for food addiction and disordered eating recovery. Stephanie weaves Chinese medicine, addiction science, and her Catholic faith into a compassionate, practical approach that meets women in real life. We talk about why recovery is a brain issue, how cycle phases can shape cravings and copings, what food is fuel can look like without rigidity, and simple support for seasons like postpartum and perimenopause. If you ever felt shame, fear, or just confusion around food, this one is a gentle exhale, and it's packed with grounded tips. All right, let's get into it. Hey, welcome back to the Cyclical Doula Podcast. I'm here today with Stephanie, and we are going to dive into a bunch of different things around nourishment, feeding our bodies, and what that looks like in regards to different seasons of life. And Stephanie will be able to introduce herself, her experience, and where she really comes from as we get started. But I'm excited to dive into this conversation. Stephanie, you want to take it away?
Sure. Thanks for having me on. My name's Stephanie Mattrey, and I'm a licensed acupuncturist in the state of Massachusetts. I have a private practice here, and I've spent the better part of the first decade of my work specializing in women's health and kind of helping women navigate all aspects of their health and their seasons of life, from fertility to childbearing to perimenopause, postmenopause. And recently, I have just expanded my practice to include helping women navigate food addiction recovery and disordered eating recovery. And so I find that near and dear to my heart because I have personal experience with that. And I am able to combine my expertise in Chinese medicine and my lived experience and I've created a program for women to help them recover from food addiction and disordered eating. So I like to just encompass all of that into the women's health sphere and use that in my practice. I'm also a wife and a mother of 3 daughters, so I have some good field research data that I've been collecting for my oldest is 16. So yeah, that's about it.
That's awesome. I would love to hear a little bit more about what called you into this space. Like you said about your story. I don't know how much you're wanting or willing to share about your specific story, but just what maybe even initially, what called you into this space of working with women in this way?
In the disordered eating way?
Sure.
Yeah, sure.
Or just in general in
Okay,
health,
sure.
whatever feels best.
Well, I'll give you answer to both sides. So when I was in acupuncture school, we had to do we were in a clinical research class, and we had to do a couple research papers. And one of the papers that I did, the topic I chose was childbirth, and it was specifically the medicalization of childbirth. And
Yeah.
I learned a ton. I don't know if you know Tina Cassidy, but she wrote a book called Birth, and that book changed the trajectory of actually my life, not just my career.
Mm-hmm.
But I learned so much about just the history of childbirth, and I realized that a lot of that's not taught to women, and I wanted to kind of teach that to women. So in doing so,
Yeah.
and learning how to teach that to women, I just by default just learned a lot about women's health in general and their bodies and how they work. And so I incorporated that into my practice, and I treated a lot of women with infertility. And then also, once they got pregnant, they would come in and I would help them with their pregnancies and even prepare them for childbirth, and also educate them on how to have a healthy childbirth and postpartum and all of that. So um, that's like a short story version of the acupuncture side of my women's health journey. The other side, the disordered eating stuff and the food addiction stuff, is like a lifelong journey. So when I
Yeah.
was 11, I developed anorexia, and it was pretty severe. And I was on the brink of death, basically, and my mom got me some
Yeah.
help, and it was good, but not like, she took me to this nutritionist, which any mom would do, right? Like, she just did her
Yeah.
best. She didn't
Right. Right.
know what to do, and so, the nutritionist was kinda harsh with me, and was in a good way, I think. Like, she was mean, like, she shouldn't be working with kids. But she told me
Mhm.
what I needed to hear, because my whole life I had always wanted to be a mom, that like, since I was a little
Yeah.
kid, and this woman said, "If you don't start eating, you're not gonna be able to have kids, like, you're gonna ruin your
Yeah.
fertility." And I was like, okay." But at the time, I was anorexic, and so to tell an anorexic kid to start eating and then not necessarily follow up or monitor them is scary for that
Yeah.
girl.
For sure.
And so I got super scared. I started eating, but I also got super scared about it, and I ended up developing bulimia by the age of 13. And it felt at the time, it felt like my secret backdoor method of being able to eat whatever I want and keep the body I want. And um, I was an athlete. And so
Mhm.
I used sports as a way for like exercise bulimia as well. And
Yeah.
it just got really, really severe, but also to the point where the bulimia was so commonplace every day that I
Yeah.
didn't even consider it a problem. It was almost like brushing your teeth. It was so normal for me to
Mhm.
just, get rid of my food after every meal, that I ended up just, I don't know, I made it a part of my life, and I'm very lucky that my body, was built with a strong constitution, because it did it was able to handle that, remarkably, and I was able to have babies, 3 babies, and I had no issues with that. But so throughout my life, I just kept going and going, and then when I was 27, I was married and in grad school, and we were trying for a baby. We got pregnant right away, and I promised the baby that I would never vomit again. I was like, "No, I'm not gonna do this to the baby." And
Yeah.
so I stopped, but I couldn't stop eating, and
Mm.
like, it just became like the food was this drug. I didn't realize I was using it to cope with all kinds of things, like past trauma, but also like the present day of being in a master's program that was really demanding, and also being pregnant, and
Yeah.
just like it
For
was like
sure.
how we talk about wine o'clock for like
Yep.
a lot of women are told to have a glass of
Right.
wine. I
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
would
Yeah.
come home and eat, and um I didn't realize it was a problem. I just was like, "Oh,
Mm.
I'm pregnant, I'm eating for 2." Gained like 70 pounds or something with that pregnancy, and, um, had the baby, but also, like, wasn't in my body. I just didn't really I was very disconnected from my body. So I just kept eating, and then here and now I have this baby. I'm still in acupuncture school, which is like it's medical school, so it was very, very intense.
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
and so I just kept that pattern, and I had a second baby, and this time by the second baby, I had graduated and I was studying for the state board, which was like a 9-month class of, like, crazy studying, like 8
Yeah.
full time. And so I was 2 weeks pregnant at the state board exam, and I didn't, like, wanna know, so I didn't actually test, but I knew intuitively, like, "Oh my gosh, I'm
Yeah.
pregnant." So I had this other baby, and I kept eating, and I just didn't I didn't have, like, a anchor or compass, so
Mhm.
food just became the way that I coped with life. I still was not bulimic actively, and then I found 12-step recovery in this process. I met somebody that had gone through it, and she wrote a book about it. I read the book, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is my story. So I talked to her and started my 12-step journey in 2012. And so I have a love, not love. I don't want to say hate. Like, I have a love dislike relationship with 12-step recovery for food in general, because
Okay.
it's not the same as like the AA journey. I've been to plenty
Hmm.
of AA meetings, because you can swap in the food programs. You can go to AA if you want, and it's just a lot different. I won't get into that, but basically, I found recovery in these rooms of this one program, which I won't mention the programs either, just because we talk about anonymity in the programs. And when you mention what they are, it's sort of like you don't want to become the spokesperson. Like, if it didn't work for you, you don't
Yes.
want to,
Yeah.
you know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yep.
Um,
Totally. Absolutely.
and it did, the first one did work for me, but I didn't maintain my food sobriety, and I was like too ashamed to go back, even though now I know that that's part of recovery. I didn't know at the time. And so I found another program. Um, and it was about 2017 by this time, and I liked it, but it was really, really strict, like militant, really strict, almost to the point where it mimicked an eating disorder, like the way that there are these rigid rules and
Yeah.
you have to do this, or you're out, or you're a failure.
Mm,
And but I like attached myself to that, or I was attracted to that because it um I was used to that, like that. It was familiar to
right.
have
Yeah.
that punishment, I guess. And so you have to get a sponsor in these programs, and for the food programs, you call the sponsor every day at like 5 in the morning. You tell her what you're going to eat. You eat that only, and if you stray from that, like, you're not sober. And so you have to kind of report that. Um, and she was so harsh with me, like, just very, I don't know. We're all just addicts. They're not like psychologists
Yeah.
in the
For
room, you
sure.
know?
Yeah.
She was just really harsh, and I was so scared of her, and I used that fear to kind of fuel my recovery. And then one
Mm,
day I was like making dinner for my kids, and I like took a bite of something, and I was like, "Oh, I want more." And I just kept eating, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I can't tell her what I just did. Like, I'll be dead. I can't tell her."
yeah.
So I vomited for the first time in 10 years after, I had gone through these 3 kids and everything. I didn't mention I had the 3rd kid in
Yep.
these programs. And the interesting thing about addiction is that it's progressive. And so whether or not you're engaged in the behavior, it's progressing in the brain. And so let's say you're sober for 10 years, but you left off only doing this much at the beginning of those 10 years, and then you're sober those 10 years. If and when you pick up again, the disease behaves as though you never stopped. So you need an actual more amount, to get the high or whatever, after
Yeah.
that period of sobriety. So I was shocked. I was shocked at like how severe the bulimia was, and it was. I'm talking like in the bathroom 50 times a day, like eating sheer amounts of food that I can't even like list, because it was so much. And I was doing this all also while parenting these 3 kids, and it was
Right.
too much. So eventually the sponsor dropped me because I had lied to her, and you're not supposed to lie, which I get. Like, honesty really is the balm against this disease. And
Right.
so I ended up checking myself into a recovery program in Florida, which a treatment center, and it was like the best decision I made. It was so good. This place was so great, and it got me to find my footing enough. I came back, and I still stumbled here and there with like in and out of
Right.
relapse, but also in the process of that, I came to the Catholic Church, which I was raised like anti-Catholic, like all, just I was
Yeah.
very pagan, I guess, in my thinking and all of this. And for some reason, all of a sudden I was open to this. And so my conversion is really, I say that it happened to me because I wasn't looking for it. And when it was happening, I was even convinced, like, there's no way, no, this isn't real. Like, I'm
Yeah.
not, so it was really this encounter. And, I couldn't divorce my recovery from my conversion. Like they were both one and the same. And if I wanted
Mhm.
one, I had to have the other. And if I wanted the other, I had to have the other. Like they just are very intertwined. And so the more I went through the recovery process and the 12-step rooms, the more I realized like, oh my gosh, there's got to be other women out there that like need
Yeah,
this. And I
right.
felt like in the 12-step rooms, it's non-denominational, which is I understand, but it is spiritual and stuff. But eventually, it became not enough. Like the spirituality, I needed more of like this Catholic spirituality for my own recovery, and
Right.
it dawned on me that you know I bet there's other women that need something like this that are also Catholic or Christian that need to hear this message, and so I created my own program called the Pulse Project, and it's an online program, and I've incorporated it into my practice. And so people that are local here, if they come to me in person for this, they can go through my program, but I also treat them with acupuncture. There's like an
Okay.
ear protocol for addiction, and
Okay.
so that together works really well. But then there's also the online component for anybody anywhere that just takes them through the program, and it's beautiful to see people. I don't know, respond to this, and also it helps my own recovery as well to like be able to serve in that way. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's basically my story in a nutshell.
That's amazing. Thanks so much for taking the time to share all of that. I feel like,
Sure,
well,
thanks. I
first of
hope it
all, like
wasn't
I
too long.
learned so much about it's absolutely it's great.
Good.
I learned so much about you, but I feel like it really gives a lot of detail to like who you are as a professional as well, like how you're approaching clients and how you're working within people within these recovery programs as well. That like it seemed like that it just seems so welcome. Like your story helps feel welcome, which I know is a
Thank
lot
you.
of times part of like that sharing aspect of it, which is
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Um, so I think for me, like I'm curious and if you have seen um and this is just like my own brain from where I come with
Mhm.
looking at cycles all the time.
Mhm.
Have you noticed in your work um that there's like cyclical aspects to women's health and these processes
Mhm.
um
In terms of eating
with
disorders and, like, like, when they
yeah or
flare and stuff?
maybe yeah
Or
sure
yeah, I mean,
or I think
the
they're
full
just like recovery in general
yeah.
health changes in general maybe
Yeah,
too
so, I don't know if you probably know, like, the cyclical influence of, like, women and productivity and how, like, the follicular phase is often when they're getting motivated and they have all
right
this energy.
right
I shouldn't say they, we have all this
yeah
energy, and the ideas are coming and we're like, "Okay, I got," and we get out the calendars and the planners and,
yeah
and then the ovulation happens and then the luteal phase is much more like, "What did I say I was gonna do?" Like, we kinda
right
lose that,
right yep
the cognition because I think all the blood is in the womb, like, ready to
yeah
have a
right
baby,
yeah
so,
absolutely
and so I think that happens with this type of, ailment, like addiction or eating disorders is like there's this I also can speak from my own experience. There's this drive in the follicular phase to, like, seek recovery and, like, "Okay, I'm gonna do it this time," and
right
things feel a little bit, organic and I don't wanna say easy, but not as, like, impossible. And then the luteal phase happens and it feel like you have, like, a hard day or somebody has a hard day or they're really, really tired, and then that's when the thoughts kind of can creep in and, we convince ourselves like, "Oh, just one," or, "Oh, I deserve to have a day off, like, why do I have to keep doing
yeah
this? I feel I'm better." And so, like, noticing those types of patterns and teaching them to women and say like look out for this in your luteal phase and note like if you're having a hard day mentally like just note where you are in your cycle and use that
yeah
as data, bring it back into me and we'll talk about it and we'll navigate through that, but like you don't need to go back to your old behaviors that don't serve you just because
right
you're having these feelings. They're primal, right? Like the way
Yeah.
that our brains work in terms of our cognition really is animalistic. It all comes down to, am I ready to have a baby? Am I going to have a baby? Am I not going to
Right.
have a baby? And the body thinks it's gonna have a baby for, like, at least a week within the cycle, right? Like,
Yeah,
at
right.
least. And and
Yeah.
and that it's not like after that week, all of a sudden, since progesterone drops, like, we're just like, "Oh, I'm not gonna have a baby." It's not until
Right.
the period happens that we're like, "Oh, I guess I'm not
Right.
having a baby." So during that
Yeah.
whole there's, like, almost a second phase in the luteal phase where women are still, like, nesting and, like, figuring out where are the tigers, what's going on, like, and that it's so I heard somewhere that women make 35,000 decisions a day
Oh
in
my
their
gosh.
brain.
I mean, like, that totally makes sense, but that
Yeah,
seems like a huge
I
number.
know. Well,
But
it's
then also it's
so
like, that sounds about right.
totally, totally, and so then think about the amount of, like, glucose and energy you need for
Yeah.
that, and then you're talking about the hormone changes that happen at ovulation and during that phase, and then the brain and how it kind of navigates decisions. So all of
Yeah.
a sudden, what was common in the follicular phase, like, oh, I'm fine. Oh, maybe I wanted that cake, but I'm going to have the salad. Now
Right.
becomes, well, just one, maybe just one, And so, anyway, that's a long, long answer to explain, but yeah,
Yeah, that's helpful though. I think that makes helps me understand it a little bit better from that perspective, and hopefully, like someone who's listening in, that helps as
yeah.
well. I wonder too, when you're working with women in this way, when you're working with them in your program, obviously, like, this is a very specific niche of people who are coming to you, and obviously they're people with this addiction.
Hmm.
Um, is that something that well, actually, I guess I should clarify. Like, is it only people who are in this like addictive eating disorder um phase, or like is it for anybody who's kind of
Any,
like working through
it's
the
anyone,
I
yeah, because
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
yeah, you
Thanks
don't.
for clarifying.
Right, no, right. You don't have to be an addict to, like, have these things happen in your
Right.
cycle. I think there's just, like, not enough attention paid to women and, like,
Mhm.
what we manage throughout the month, and then
Absolutely.
it gets, like, made fun of or, like, poo-pooed, but it's really a
Yeah,
lot. It's a lot,
it
and so
is. Yeah.
I'm big on, like, brain chemistry and what's going on in the brain. How do the hormones actually, like, affect the brain, not just the
Yeah.
uterus and all that, and, cognition, and so, yeah, for instance, I see a lot of women right now in perimenopause, and so
Okay.
they their cycles are messed up. Some women get 2 periods a year, some of them get, like, their cycle length becomes 90 days, and then their
Yeah.
bleed time is, like, 3 days, and so they're in the meantime, because they're not, like, they don't have that regular flush out,
Yeah.
it all builds up, and it's like this one giant, like, luteal phase, if you will, and so
Right, right.
learning to help them navigate, um, the thought patterns that come, or, like, sleep
Yeah.
disturbances. A lot of them have a lot of sleep issues, um,
Mhm.
so we work on all of that, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that that brings up for me also, like, knowing that a lot of women struggle with just food in that, like, luteal phase and when they're bleeding, in regards to just, like, different cravings.
Mhm.
And, I wonder if you have any insight to, like, how women could approach that in a different way,
Yeah.
either maybe, like, mindset-wise or
Yeah.
physically, things like that.
So my favorite saying is, "Food is not entertainment, it's fuel." Like, or I say food is fuel, not entertainment. And so it's kind of a harsh statement, but, like, if you kinda have that in the back of your mind, it puts into perspective of, like, where is this refined food gonna take me? Like, this ultra
Yeah.
processed food that I want right now, is it gonna make me feel better for more than 10 minutes? Probably not. Do I have to deprive myself of it? No, like, it's not I'm not a black and white or, like, this idealist
Right.
person. However, I do believe in collecting data of your own, like, how your cycles, influence your thinking and, maybe your cravings as well. but in the luteal phase between ovulation and through the end of the bleed, um, women really do crave sugar. They crave sugar and flour and fat because
Right.
they're again, like, they're getting ready to
Their
build
bodies are
a
trying to
human.
prepare. Yeah, for sure.
Exactly. So, it's just naturally we're kind of drawn to the higher calorie foods because, again, you don't know when the tiger's gonna strike, when you're gonna have to run. You're now building this baby. Not to mention, again, the brain making all these decisions, it
Hmm.
needs fuel, and so just keeping that in mind, it doesn't mean that you have to have the croissant every day. Maybe you
Right.
have it one day during that phase, and then the rest of the week, you kinda have boring chicken and salad and rice. Like, it's boring, but
Hmm.
it's still healthy, and it's still gonna help sustain your energy, and it's actually gonna be better for your body so that when the new follicular phase comes, your ovaries are gonna be healthier and have much more nutrition so that when they do pop out an egg, all of it
Yeah.
really
Awesome.
builds on itself.
For sure.
Yeah, and so the I will say that a lot of women do crave chocolate, right,
Yeah.
before their periods, and chocolate, I don't remember what the compound is, but there's a compound in chocolate that releases dopamine like that, and so
Yeah.
it's interesting that, um I don't know why it's such a common craving for a lot of
Yeah.
women, and they'll just have, like, a little square. Now, like, for me, I can't do that. I'll crave it, but if I have a
Right.
little square, all of a sudden, it's, like, the whole aisle of the grocery store. So that's,
Yeah.
like that's, like, another element of all of that.
Right.
So, yeah.
Hmm. That's good. Yeah, I think that's helpful to think through all of those aspects of it, and that phrase "food is fuel." I've heard that before, and I feel like that's
Mm.
a really good thing. And I think a lot of times, like I also see that as helpful in like a lot of different seasons in women's lives as well. To
Mhm.
really think like postpartum comes to mind, and like
Uh-huh.
pregnancy comes to mind too. Of just
Uh-huh.
like, sometimes it's more important to just, like, make sure you're getting the food that's actually gonna fuel your body to, like,
Right.
work through
Right.
your day to day. Because I know without that nourishment, it's hard to
It's
function
hard.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. And it's like an
absolutely.
active, endeavor, like,
Right.
the postpartum period is so fragile, like, women are so
Mhm.
fragile, and
Yeah.
that's okay. That's okay,
Yeah.
right? Like, they have and their babies are fragile. They're, like, in an outer womb together, right? And so we need
Right,
to
right.
nurture them, and so the meal trains are awesome, but I would maybe recommend, like, if someone's gonna do a meal train for you after you have your baby, like, ask them if maybe you can have a hand in, like, what people can make for you.
Yeah,
I think a
yeah,
lot of like, me personally, like, I love it when someone tells me what they like because then I'm like, "Oh, good,
yeah.
I know they're gonna
Yeah, I
eat
can make
this."
this specific thing, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and so, like, having little things like that to plan and say, "Hey, maybe can you do the meal train, like, after 30 weeks or something, and I can start putting
Yeah,
stuff in the freezer," and then you have everything kind of maybe portioned out if you wanna do that, to kinda
yeah,
keep things 'cause, like, I just remember as a nursing mom, a new mom, I was lucky if I ate a full meal, like, I
for
would
sure.
have,
Yeah.
like, a graham cracker and milk,
Right.
and that
Yeah.
was my lunch, um, so yeah, having those little things planned is good too.
Let's take a quick moment for a little brain break and talk about something different. Have you ever wished someone could just sit down with you and magically tell you when you were going to get your period next? Or maybe tell you exactly which days you can and can't get pregnant? That's the beauty of charting. Once you understand your cycle, it stops feeling like this random guessing game and starts feeling like a pattern you can actually trust. I promise it's not as complicated as it might seem. Your body is already giving you all the clues. You just need someone to show you how to read them. That's exactly what I'm doing right now while finishing my Fertility Knowledge Collective certification. I'm still looking for a few clients to work with me for 3 months of online cycle coaching and charting support. We'll meet virtually, review your real life signs like cervical mucus and temperature, and help you build skills you can use for the rest of your life. And as part of my certification process, this round is pay what you can. So if you've ever thought, I just wish someone would guide me, this is your chance. To get in touch with me, either message me on Instagram at Cyclical Doula or text FKC, just so I know that what we're talking about, to 854-220-0218. I'll send you the details and we can figure out if this is a good fit for you. Okay, let's get back into the episode. Yeah, absolutely. When I was postpartum, my husband's like the cook of our family, so I feel like for me, like that experience was a lot different than most people's.
Mm.
But a friend wound up bringing over a meal at one point, which was great. But she also brought over like a bunch of other food. Like she brought over like fruit and like
Oh,
snacks and
that's
muffins,
so
and I was
nice.
like, that's now I like know after going through that I'm like, okay, like if I'm bringing food to somebody else, I'm also gonna like make sure that they have breakfast to eat the next morning too,
Yeah.
if that's something that
Yeah.
is important. And I feel like, oh man, like when we're feeding people in that way, that can be so
Yeah.
being
Yeah.
conscious of that and like and
Definitely.
thinking through that. But I love the idea of like we're our gatekeepers of like, yeah, like this is the type of food that I'll eat well. Like, can you
Mhm.
bring me this
Mhm.
specifically?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, awesome. I am also wondering, so you mentioned that you have three daughters. That's right,
Mhm.
right? They're all
Yes.
daughters. So how do you, not that it would be similar if you had sons as well, but like how do you, with your experience, how do you implement this into parenting and um in regards to like just what you know about women's health in general? Like how are you having these conversations with your daughters around just like being healthy in general
Mhm.
and getting
Yeah.
into those conversations?
Yeah, well, it helps that they're all athletes. They're all, like, high-level
Yeah.
competitive swimmers, and,
Okay.
that sport is I call it a lifestyle. It's not even a sport
Yeah.
because like, we're just at the pool all the time. But it's good, and they love it, but it is really demanding. So it kind of gives me
Hmm.
a little bit of an in to talk about nutrition,
Yeah.
like, "Hey, guys, if you wanna, achieve this goal, maybe you should listen to mom about eating A, B, and C." Now,
Yeah.
getting them to eat
For sure.
in a healthy way is they're pretty good, but, like, there's definitely goldfish going on and right? And, like,
Yeah.
cakes and cookies and whatever, and I think that's fine for growing kids, but I don't ever mention, like, bodies or looks or I try not to, like, sometimes if they're dressed up for church or whatever, I'll maybe say like, "Oh, that looks nice," but I actually try to police that a little bit because I
Yeah.
grew up, like, every single day it was commented on what I was wearing and how I was looking,
Right.
and I just feel like that gets into girls, especially into their heads, like, "Oh, mom
Yeah.
didn't say anything today. I wonder if I'm" you know? So
Yeah. Absolutely.
I try to subliminally not make it a big deal about how they look, as long
Hmm.
as they're groomed,
Yes.
and, like, they're
Right. That's
clean.
different. That's
Yeah,
different. Yeah,
exactly.
for sure.
Um, but then it was really interesting too, like, teaching my oldest because of course, she's the guinea pig, so
Yeah. Right.
she's the dry run, and, teaching her about her body when she started menstruating and,
Yeah.
like, finding myself like, I showed her of course, I wouldn't expect a teenager to, like, use a basal body thermometer, but I showed
Yep.
her what it is and, like, what it does and how cool the chart is and, like,
Yeah.
the dips and valleys um, and what happens when, and she was just like, "Oh," and so it kind of instilled in her an organic, uh, interest in her own body and, like, noticing,
Yeah.
"Hey, mom, what is this?" Like, discharge or whatever, and I get to tell her like, "Oh, well, that's" in a very matter of fact way, not like,
Yeah.
we don't talk about" right? Like,
Yeah. It
that
just
that
is.
happens when
It's
you're
science. Yeah, it's
exactly,
biological. Yeah,
exactly,
absolutely.
like, that happens when you're ovulating, that happen and so then, working that into the conversation about health and also I don't really talk too much about food. I
Yeah.
talk about nutrition, right? Like, I
Yeah,
sort of,
absolutely.
um I figure out ways to say like, okay, this is if you want to feel good, like in the water, maybe don't have the bag of chips. Maybe
Yeah.
have like some protein instead. And they get to again do their own field research and collect their data. Like, oh, I had that candy bar and like I don't really feel good in the water. And then with their cycles, kind of also teaching them because I think across the board, it takes about 3 years for, any girl to go from menarche to, like, an established period cycle. Um, for their body to really learn how all these cycles. And so it can be irregular for up to 3 years. And so seeing them, I remember seeing my oldest, I could tell when my period was coming by her behavior. 'Cause they
Yeah.
cycle with you before they even start bleeding. So, like, 3 years before her first period, she started cycling with me, and she would get all, like, edgy and irritable like, 2 or 3 days before I started my period, and I, of course, never put it together because it's always like,
Yeah.
"Why is she being li—" And then my period would come, and I was like, "Oh my gosh."
You're
And so
also probably more irritable and, like, all
yeah,
that too. Yeah.
exactly. But
Absolutely.
then teaching them too about like, okay, you lost it or you flew off the handle just like I have. Where are you on your cycle? Like it's not that you should yell at your family members, but like give yourself grace that like so much is changing in your brain through puberty and now and during, and like here's why. And so I explain all of that. And I like to kind of go back to, I have a degree in psychology as well for my undergrad degree, and my favorite thing to study was animal behavior. And so I
Mm.
love to go into that realm of like touched on it a couple times in this conversation, like where
Yeah.
are the tigers? And because
Yeah.
like females really are, we're all about like what's going on. Like that's why we're good at multitasking because we have to make
Right.
sure that everything's safe and the children are
Mhm.
safe. And the girls brains kind of start doing that early on, and I think it's overwhelming, and so
Yeah.
they fly
For
off the handle,
sure.
and then their hormones are like craziness. So
Right.
teaching them to give themselves grace instead of like beat themselves up like, oh, I lashed out again or whatever.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I feel like for me as a parent and what it sounds like you're doing too is just like having those conversations on the regular just as like
Yeah,
this is
matter of
just
fact.
this is just a conversation. Like this is
Right.
just how things are, or like
Yep.
this is the way our bodies work, or this
Mhm.
is the way things happen scientifically. Like I
Yeah.
I feel like it's one of those things where sometimes it's just so much easier to just probe a little bit to like make sure that you're giving the right information for like the season that they're in.
Yes.
Um and then just given the smallest details as needed and go from there.
Yeah. And regardless of what anybody tells you, all teens want to talk to you. They do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even if they're telling you they don't, or like, "Get away from me, mom," like, it's not personal, but try again. You get up and try
Yeah.
again, and, like, I've had some of the most amazing conversations with my girls after I've given them the space to feel, like, safe to open up, and that's
Yeah.
where I insert, like, the little,
Right,
"This
right,
is what's
right.
happening in your
Absolutely.
brain and your body," and yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think like for sure it's a great reminder to be able to just like if you're a safe space for your kids, like they
Mhm.
want to feel that connection. They want
Yeah.
and they're gonna push back because like that they're supposed to. Like they're supposed to
Exactly.
like see if you'll still stick around
Exactly.
and
They
still
need
be
that
there and
trust.
still love them and still
Mhm.
connect with them and just keep trying. Yeah,
Yep.
that's great. Absolutely. Um all right. I want to know, like, what if somebody is listening to this and is feeling shame or fear around food in general, what do you want them to hear first? Like, as if they're
Mm.
coming, if this is the first time that they're like listening into something like this.
What I'd like to say first would be that it is not your fault, that it is an actual brain illness that is starting to slowly be accepted. It's not quite accepted in the field, the psychiatry field. It's not in the DSM-5 yet. Food addiction is not. Eating disorders are. Um, and you know, they thought alcoholism was not a disease for how many centuries,
Right.
right?
Right.
Until they were like, oh, actually. And so some people like it is like alcoholism. Some people can have a glass of wine and be fine, and they're not alcoholics. And then some people can have a donut and be fine. They're not food addicts. But there are some people that respond to sugar like biologically and refined flour and things um in an abnormal way. And
Mm-hmm.
so again, like it's brain chemistry, it's not their fault, but there is a way to navigate it. It's not necessarily um pain-free or comfortable at the beginning, But on the other side of like that embarking on the recovery and living in recovery is I can't even describe it. It's the most amazing space to be in.
Yeah.
So that's what I would say. It's like it's not your fault and there is a solution and
Right.
you can do it. And I'm not gonna lie that it's gonna be hard, but it's like good hard. I also try to tell people like, yeah, recovery is hard. It's work. But also being in the disease, active addiction is hard.
For
So like
sure. Yeah.
choose your hard. They're both
Right.
hard. And one is going to
Yeah.
lead you to a very productive, beautiful life, and the other one's just going to keep you stuck. So, yeah.
Well, thank you.
Mhm.
Is there anything else that you want to share about either your work or that you want women to hear in general?
Um, I don't know. I think I think women's health is incredible, and I think that women are not like we're told to do all this self-care, but then we're
Yeah.
not necessarily given the space or respect to like execute that. And so we
Mm.
justify like, "Oh, I got a massage today." But like
Yeah.
it's okay, right? And I think that putting ourselves on the list, it's really putting our oxygen masks on first. And so
Hmm.
if women are mothers, all women are caregivers, that we're nurturers by nature. And so if we're mothers or we're taking care of somebody or whatever, putting ourselves at the top of the list of things to do, which is never ending, that is like putting our oxygen mask on first so that we can continue to help others. And so that's what I try to do every day is just put on my oxygen mask first, like maintain my recovery so that I can then go into the world and help whoever needs it. And the Pulse Project is unique in the sense that it really it combines science, like brain science, addiction science, and mental health and emotional health, but also the spiritual
Yeah.
aspect of it. So it's like
Hmm.
the three legs of the stool kind of coming together in this holistic way, and it's a beautiful thing, I think.
That's amazing. I love that. I'm so glad that we were able to have these conversations. As we round out,
Yeah.
I would love to hear, I've been asking all my guests what like rhythm or ritual is important to you and do you like not live by, but that's a phrase I've been
Mhm.
using, but like in the sense of like use regularly.
Yeah. I'm pretty devoted to prayer.
Yeah.
So I liked recently I haven't been getting I've been only getting up at like 6, which is late for me. I like to
Mhm.
get up at like 4:30 or 5 and I just sit. I don't like make it a big, "Oh, let's get out a Bible study. Oh, let's pray the rosary." Like, I do those things at other
Mhm.
times, but I start my day every morning by sitting in prayer, in conversation with God for about a half an hour, and it just grounds me and anchors me so that I can continue my day. I also write my food down, the night before, and it's not that, like, it's this rigid militant thing, but it's more like I make a promise to God, like, this is what I'm gonna eat today. And then sometimes the day comes and I have my food already made and I'm like, I don't really feel like eating this. But I did say that this is what I was gonna eat and I wanna live in integrity today. And so this is what I'm gonna do. It's just fuel.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so those are the two things that I try to do every day.
I love that. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Well, thanks so much. Where can people find you? I'll put all the links to your stuff in the show notes, but where can
Sure,
people find
thanks.
you or like work with you if they want to?
My website is www.shinerising.com. You can go there and find all the information about what I do, and the Pulse Project. I also have a podcast called The Pulse Project, and that's on, any podcast platform. And yeah, I think that's all that I that's all
That's
that I do.
awesome. Great.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, it's been such a joy to talk to you. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
you sharing so much about just who you are and like what you do and how you're helping women walk through this space. So thanks so
Thank
much for
you.
being here.
Well, thanks so much for having me. It was great.
Absolutely. Great. Thanks so much for tuning into the Cyclical Doula podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, it would mean so much if you shared it with a friend or posted it on Instagram and tagged me at Cyclical Doula. If you've got a question you'd love to hear answered on the show, head over to emmamma.com/podcast to submit it. And don't forget, leaving a quick review really helps this podcast reach more people. Plus, if you upload a screenshot of your review on my website, I'll send you a special surprise as a thank you. You'll find all the details in the show notes about this show today, and I really appreciate you being here and listening in. I'll see you next time.
Welcome to the space where cycles breathe, where the real raw life of Emmamma leads. From motherhood's highs to charting the low, your body's story is the star of the show. Matriarch hearts, cycles that speak, charting the truth in every peak. This is the cyclical doula sound, where body wisdom is always found. Matriarch hearts, cycles that speak, charting the truth in every peak. This is the cyclical doula sound, where body wisdom is always found.
Just a disclaimer and a reminder that any guests on the show are views of their own and not necessarily views of Emmamma LLC or Emma Goff herself. Thanks so much.